The Common Ground World Competition happening on September 10, 2024 will feature the Mushroom Pizza meta. The craft requirements for the Mushroom Pizza are 1 pizza base, 7 mushroom, and 2 tomatoes. It is crafted in the Italian restaurant with the fastest craft time of 1 minute and stored in the storehouse. For this competition, the Mushroom Pizza will give 30,000 stars for each one sold. The trade time for this competition is 20 seconds with a 1 gasoline cost per trade. The starting layout provided for this competition is a plains biome facing south with an ocean on the north side and the river on the east side. You start with everything you need to craft flour, although the positioning of the 2 wheat fields is not ideal and you would be better off having the wheat fields closer to the river in a spot with at least 3 passive water. You have a warehouse to store energy in, but this time no wind turbine or industrial worker was provided. You have 2 water pumps, 4 paved roads, and an additional fuel storage. You could sell flour to get all the cash you need. I usually recommend doing gold, but in this case the cash boost to flour and dough is good enough, and the finished design should not be as expensive as most other designs. And with this design I'm going to show you in a moment, you could just start working on the final design while you craft only flour and sell it all. Gold is still a viable option if you enjoy doing it, and is probably still the faster method of collecting cash due to how much it can be scaled up, but it will definitely be more work. The cash boosts for this competition are flour from 2,000 to 5,500 and dough from 34,250 to 50,000. The rewards for this competition are the standard Gala rewards for reaching the top 1,200 placements in the leaderboards by the time the competition ends. Rewards are usually distributed directly to your account within 5 days. This is my no NFT required mushroom pizza build showcase. This one was inspired by the first pizza build that I created, which was for the 4 cheese pizza competition that we had about a year ago. So that's why this design looks similar to that one. This one is doing about 29 mushroom pizzas per hour. It's been running for 4 hours now. I actually had it running for a lot longer before this, but the game kept getting disconnected for some reason. So I'm going to scroll through the production monitor so you can see what all the items are producing. And really the only one I'm going to point out is milk. Milk is at 236 per hour. Yes, that's enough milk to get me to 29 per hour, but that's kind of what's stopping it from going a little further. This has basically all the items to get 30 or even 31 mushroom pizza per hour, but it does need a little bit more milk, and that's just because milk is being used for butter and cheese. It's very hard to perfectly balance those. I've managed to do it very well. As you can see, butter and cheese rate is about the same. And actually, I did say this does 29 per hour. It actually does 29.5 per hour, so I could have said this does 30 per hour, but I just ran it down to 29. But if you manage to increase the milk production, you should be able to get this to 30 or 31 per hour. Past that point, you would need to increase a whole lot of other production rates. Now I'm going to break down the crafting process, starting with salt, flour, and sugar. So I have 7 logger houses in charge of collecting wood from the 17 tree farms. All of them are on a green craft timer, and I don't actually need this many tree farms. I probably would have done okay with just 14 of them, honestly. 3 are extra, so this will be overproducing wood. I have 9 tractors in charge of picking up all the crops. There are 6 wheat fields, 4 are on a green craft timer, 1 is on a yellow craft timer with 2 shade, 1 is on a red craft timer with over 3 shade, dirty, salty. This is being affected by everything. You'll notice this, I did this with various different crops, and this is done on purpose to balance the production of the crops better so that I am not overproducing them and not selling too many crops, like more than I should be. So it's all about balancing. That's why I have certain crops being negatively impacted to slow them down. So at first I did have only 5 wheat fields on the green craft timer, but I was overproducing wheat or flour, but I really didn't need to be doing that. That's why I settled for this setup with 1 on a yellow craft timer and 1 on a red craft timer. So moving on, I have 3 sugarcane fields fields, 2 on a green craft timer, 1 is on a yellow craft timer being affected by 1 shade, and I have 6 salt fields. They are all right next to the ocean so that they have the 3 passive salty that they need to be on a green craft timer. And when I say green craft timer, that just means fastest craft timer. I just use those terms interchangeably in my videos. So I have 3 silos to store all of the crops in. This one should be getting in the husk rice and the brine. This one should be getting in the mushrooms and tomatoes and sugarcane. This one should mostly just be getting wheat. I have a total of 19 windmills, which doesn't sound like very much, but 8 of those windmills are on a green craft timer, starting with the ones making salt. These 3 windmills are crafting salt on a green craft timer since they're not being negatively impacted by any nearby shade. I have 11 of them making flour, 5 of which are on a green craft timer on the edges over here, and the other 6 are on a red craft timer. And the rest of the 5 windmills over here are crafting sugar on a red craft timer. And I have a total of 4 storehouses. For milk and eggs, I have 4 ATVs, and I do have them close to where my livestock is so that the ATVs don't have to walk too far. That'll allow them to pick up the items quicker, and it does help with the production of both milk and eggs. I have 9 milk barns. They all have the 3 passive water that they need, and yes, I did have to build 5 ponds in order to accomplish this. I have 1 chicken coop, and I have a total of 39 meadows so they can get as much feed as they possibly can get. I usually don't mention this, but as you can see, the milk barns are all rotated in different ways so that the cows can prioritize going for certain meadows and they're not just all going for the same general area. I believe this does help with the production rates. I have the chicken coop facing the north side so that they can prioritize getting these 3 meadows, and you just want to mess with things like that because it does affect your production rates. You may actually be able to rotate these and even increase the milk production rate. For tomato sauce and cheese production, I have 4 rice fields. 1 is on a yellow craft timer being impacted by 1 dirty. Like I said, this is all done on purpose to balance the production rate of certain things. I have a total of 5 mixing tents. 3 of them are making white rice. They do have the 1 passive energy they need from the nearby power plant, and the 2 on the south are crafting cheese. They also require rice vinegar. So I have 3 sauce facilities. 1 is crafting tomato paste and 2 are crafting rice vinegar. The ones crafting rice vinegar need 2 passive water. That's why they're next to a pond. For the one crafting tomato paste, that also requires tomatoes. So I have 2 tomato farms in order to accomplish that. Tomato farms do not care about shade, so they're not negatively impacted by it. And the tomatoes get stored in this silo, like I mentioned earlier, so that the sauce facility making tomato paste can quickly pick it up, as well as the nearby Italian restaurant that also needs some tomatoes. And now all the items leading up to mushroom pizza. I have 4 bakeries, 2 are crafting butter and 2 are crafting dough. I have 3 mushroom farms, 2 are on a green craft timer, 1 is on a yellow craft timer. Mushroom farms are positively impacted by shade. So as you can see, this one only has 2 shade. That's why it's on a yellow craft timer. It needs to have at least 3 shade in order to be on a green craft timer. So why didn't I just place this one here? That would make it a green craft timer. Once again, it's just to balance the amount of mushrooms. If I actually had the mushroom farm here, I would be overproducing mushrooms. Actually, I'm already overproducing mushrooms. I'm making enough mushrooms to potentially make 35 mushroom pizzas per hour, and I just don't have the items for that. I believe when I had the mushroom farm over here, I was making enough mushrooms to make 40 mushroom pizzas per hour, so there's no need for me to overproduce that many mushrooms. That's why I purposely have it here. I did try running only 2 mushroom farms, but then I wouldn't be making enough mushrooms. So yes, very important to figure out all this balancing so that you don't have to sell so many excess items. Not just like the tomatoes I mentioned earlier, the mushrooms go here, which is important because the Italian restaurant that's actually crafting the mushroom pizza has to make 7 trips. It's better if the silo is right next to it or across from it. I do have 2 Italian restaurants. This one is making the pizza base. It should pick up all the items it needs from these nearby storehouses. And finally, this Italian restaurant is the one that's making the mushroom pizza. I have the standard gasoline setup on the northwest corner next to the ocean, 2 water pumps, 2 power plants, the refinery in between them crafting gasoline, and the refinery to the side crafting petroleum. I'm using 1 forklift to pick up crude oil from 4 oil pumps, and I store all the crude oil, petroleum, and gasoline in the fuel storage. Now there are some optional buildings here that you don't need at the very end. The lumber mill is just here to craft lumber to build all the buildings, but you don't need this at the very end. Same thing with the warehouse. This is just to store energy in. You don't need this. And the lumber yard to store your wood and lumber in. If you do decide to keep the lumber yard, I recommend you jam it with lumber. You do not want wood going into your lumber yard or woodshed because it might potentially slow down the production of certain things like your flour, salt, sugar, eggs, or milk, because the millers and ATVs will be going to pick up wood and it might just kind of screw up the production there. Now I also have this empty spot which is meant to be a builder house. I suppose you could also build a trade pier, but you shouldn't need to do that. But if you do want to optimize this further, I do recommend that you replace these optional buildings. Here's what the auto cell looks like. All of the crops should be at an auto cell quantity of 12 and all the other items are at an auto cell quantity of 10. Here's what the build looks like on the visualizer. Total cost is 12.5 million. Wages are 15,340 per minute. You will have no issue paying the wages once you're finished with the build. You can find the file for this visualizer on my Discord server, and an invite link to the Discord is in the description. So that should be everything. I believe this design is very competitive, although I believe you could get somewhere between 30 to 35 mushroom pizzas per hour with something more optimized. As you can see, I have a lot of roads here. There are other designs that I could have done to have more buildings here that cast one shade, similar to what I did over here. I'm sure there's always another way to do this, but like I said, I inspired this whole design based off the 4-cheese pizza one that I did about a year ago, and that one worked very well, so I'm like, might as well do the same thing. We got about the same biome setup as that one anyway, with the ocean on the north and river on the east. I hope you found this helpful or informative. If you did, please leave a like, leave a comment. If you have any feedback or questions, consider subscribing if you haven't done so. Check out the links in the description if you would like to help support the channel, and as always, I appreciate your support and thank you for watching.